Hello guys, I'm back from another video and today we're talking about what if Deku was in Genshin Impact. So in the last video we talked about how after a while basically getting the feel of Inazuma and also a bit of having fun. Well, I'm just gonna be shortening it because it's mostly just filler somewhat, and we're just gonna be going off to where they actually gone to the festival. So, as they arrived at the festival, which after hearing the large explosions, which when Izuku heard them, he thought it was Bakugo, but thankfully it was just fireworks. So after arriving at the large festival, they would basically go there, and it somewhat reminded him of a summer festival back in Japan. So after a while, basically going around having a bit of fun, they would see the Archon, aka Raiden Shogun. And after announcing that, it's finally time for the festival to begin, and also telling them, oh, I don't know, that they're gonna be capturing Izuku, and not only that, Raiden wants to catch him for, making him her, future husband. Oh boy, let's just say Izuku was not really happy about that, and also Lumine, she was not happy about that, but for Paimon, yeah, she doesn't really give a fuck. So, after hearing this, a certain Kujo-Sara would see them and would basically tell, the guards to basically capture him, including Lumine. So, after, leaving the site, they would basically start packing all of their things to get out of there. So, after saying goodbye to his, I guess you can say his extended family and, the treasure hoarder's, personal, or at least like personal inn, they would basically start to leave, but they would also notice that, Toma was also there, and after explaining the situation, which Toma would also hear about the whole announcement, Toma would basically say that they're allowed to go at, basically stay at, where he usually works at. Specifically, the place known as the mansion of... God dang it. Of the Kamisato clan. So, after arriving there, they would basically be greeted by guards as, they would also meet Ayaka Kamisato, aka the heir of the Kamisato clan, and also the sister of Ayato, at least I think that's his name, Ayato Kamisato, aka, the current, a current member of the, what's that called? I think it was called the Yoshiro Commissioner. Anyway, so, after, introducing herself, they would basically explain their whole dilemma as she would basically allow them to basically stay at her, home. But she also, tells them that she also wants to, have a bit of fun with them. Mostly, sparring, because because she sort of wants to see, the fighting styles of other nations, mostly because, she was sheltered her whole life, and also because, the recent events of, of this event, aka, the whole, I guess you could say, Inazuma arc, well, she couldn't, see other sword styles and things of that sort, so she would basically ask them, to maybe try, at least, show her some of, their styles of fighting. So, after, deciding to do that, they would basically leave and would basically fall asleep. But we go to a different perspective, specifically with, La Signora in the, castle of, Raiden Shogun. And after a bit of arguing, saying that, both of them are obviously going to be, Izuku's future wife. Yeah, sort of. I mean, La Signora is definitely not going to have a good ending. if you get what I mean. Oh boy, she's gonna become crispy. Anyway, so, after a while of arguments and also while basically fighting, a guy with a large rimmed hat and an almost, Inazuman feel would basically appear and basically stop the whole fight. Apparently, his name was Scaramouche. So, after they left with, an angry, a certainly angry-ass La Signora, we basically ended off the episode with, a certain Kujo-Sara, basically, still pretty much in conflict, mostly saying to herself that she's basically helping out her Archon, but at the same time, she's basically forcing, Here's sort of true love, aka Izuku, in a horrible marriage, which she sort of likes, Izuku after hearing his little exploits in Leeway and also, Mondstadt. So, yeah, that is where we basically ended off the episode. So, yeah, let us talk about what happens next. So, as Izuku and Lumine basically wake up, they would basically wake up as they would basically start to eat. Yeah, that's basically a lot of basically. Anyway, so, as they're finishing, breakfast, they would basically start to, go outside as they would see Ayaka basically training. She would basically start, training on, her sword style, which Izuku would just think, yeah, this is basically just Japan. He would basically start to think in his mind because it sort of resembles, Kaido, which apparently it's sort of like, like Kendo, but except, a little bit more different, if you get what I mean. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's basically like, you basically imagine an imaginary, enemy, and you basically try to fight it. Yeah, it's that. It's a simple, explanation about it, but it's much more complicated. If you want to know, then this guy specifically, he basically, practiced Iaido and could definitely, I think there was a video about, what Iaido is, or at least I think that's the name of the actual, that type of practice of swordsmanship. But, basically, just go to this guy and you'll probably know what Iaido means. So, after seeing her basically, training, she would basically stop as she would say, "Oh, you're finally here." As, Izuku would just say, "Wow, you're actually pretty talented," he would basically say, as you'd say, "Yeah, thank you. Anyway, I want to see you fight me. I want to see you and your fighting style," she would basically say, as she would basically give Izuku a simple katana. As you'd say, "Well, I do have my own sword, but I guess this'll work." As she would say, "Okay, no versions, okay?" She would basically say, as, Izuku would say, "Sure." He would basically, goes into a fighting stance, which is his usual one, which resembles a typical, like, just imagine, like, a typical, like, fencer type stance. Not really fencer, but more like, basically just imagine, like, those typical, like, knight's poses that you would see in, like, anime or something of that sort. That's basically what he's doing. He's basically standing like a knight, basically getting ready to, fight. As Lumine is basically on the sidelines with Toma, which Toma is currently, buying something. As he would say, "Here." As, Lumine would say, "Oh, thanks." Which she would grab the dongle, which, Toma somehow got, so he would be, like, both of them would basically start to eat as the fight would begin. Izuku would basically charge in with the sword as she would basically start fighting him. Izuku would basically, get the upper hand with his fighting style, which is a bit more rougher and a little bit more, I guess you say dash and kill type thing. As Ayaka would basically start to, feel immense pressure from his attacks. As she would say, "Alright, take this!" As she would basically, not really slice, but more like, uses the wooden sword to basically, smash him on the side. As when Izuku saw this, he would basically jump back. As she would say, "Well, that was certainly strong. And how did you learn that anyway?" As Izuku would say this, "Well, let's just say my parents were, and, my family is a bit, special," he would basically say. As he would basically put his sword in he would basically put his sword into a reverse grip. After doing this, he would basically charge forward, as he would start, basically start beating on her. She would basically, try to block all of the attacks, but most of them are basically, getting through her defenses. After a while, Izuku would basically pin her into the ground, as Izuku would basically put, the wooden sword right next to her neck, as you'd say, "Heh, I guess I won." As you'd say, "You were certainly certainly fast, Izuku, but you were definitely not really good with that sword." As you'd say, "Yeah, no kidding. I'm not really, not really good with these types of swords, so," as you'd say, "I see. So, anyway, how about it's your turn now?" Lumine, as Lumine would say this. Sure, as she would basically say, huh, good job, Izuku, as Izuku would say this. Yeah, sugar tits, he would basically say, as she would say, please don't say things like that, as she would say, says the girl who keeps telling me, as she would basically start covering his mouth, as, Ayaka was a bit embarrassed hearing this, as Toma would basically start to laugh a little bit, as Izuku would say this. Anyway, Lumine, your turn. I should say, yeah, and maybe next time try not to say things like that, as you'd say, sure, maybe next time try not to be less pervy, you would basically say, as you'd say, alright, just shut up. Anyway, we should probably start. As Ayaka would say this. Agreed. So, she would basically gets ready her sword, as she would basically, goes into her typical fighting stance. As the meme would go into, her fighting stance, which, just like in the game, just imagine her just like, just like in the game. As she would basically charge towards her, as both of them would start to clash. Izuku and also, Toma are basically just like eating dango on the side. Wait for a second. Sorry about that, guys. So, as they're basically fighting, Izuku is basically eating some dango with, Toma. As Toma would say this. Dang, your girlfriend is actually pretty good. As you'd say, yeah, trust me, she's absolutely great, absolutely great in anything. Especially during battle, he would basically say, as, he would say, I thought it was gonna go to a different direction, as he would say, get your mind out of the gutter, he would basically say, as, Toma would say, touche. So, after a while basically fighting, Lumine would also won, as, she would basically, brings up her hand, as she'd say, are you alright? As, what's her face, as Ayaka would say, yeah, I'm okay, and dang, you're strong. As, Lumine would say this, yeah, I know. Anyway, we should probably get back now. So, after arriving back at their seats, they would basically, just go down and basically just like, sit around. So, after a while, basically, just like sitting around, basically having a bit of fun, and also Toma basically telling stories about, a bit about, Ayaka and her, let's just say big forehead. And let's just say Ayaka was not really happy about that, saying, stop it, as, Toma would just go like, yeah, but still, it's pretty much funny, as Izuku would just, would obviously start to, laugh a little bit more, knowing that she has a forehead that can rival, like, a billboard, like, quirk, which, this is a little tangent, or I guess you could say, like, not really tangent, it's more like, a flashback. So, back when it was still, I guess you could say the successor of All For One, he would, remember how he, I guess you'd say stolen a quirk, but let's just say the quirk was pretty much stupid. Basically, the person's quirk allows him to basically, have a big forehead, and anything on it, he's basically able to, let's just say, like, he goes into a movie theater and basically, watches the movie. He's able to basically, create that movie on his forehead. So, yeah, that's not really a useful quirk per se, but oh god. Just imagine that type of scenario in his head as you go like, yeah, I can definitely see that. So, after a while basically teasing Ayaka, they would basically start to, leave to eat lunch. So, at lunch, they would basically go around town as they're basically, eating, at some little restaurant there. As they were eating, a few people were basically watching them. As Izuku would say this, I feel like somebody's watching us suspiciously. As, Lumine would say, yeah, agreed. It feels like a few people were basically judging us. As one person would basically go into a certain area, as this person seems to be a member of, I guess you'd say a certain, civilian that was, in contact with, I guess you'd say, a poster of Izuku, more specifically the wanted poster for him, made by the Raiden Shogun. You know where this is going. So, as, he was basically, going towards a little, area of guards, he would basically say that they found, Izuku, they would basically start mobilizing. So, as Izuku heard this, he would say, "Oh, God." As he would basically look over and see a few guards, as they would say, "Izuku!" As all of them would basically, wield up their weapons, as one of them would say, "We're here to capture you." As Izuku would say this, as he would basically look at, Lumine, as he would say, "Come on, let's go." As he would basically grab her hand, including Paimon's, as he would say, "Toma, we're basically leaving now, bye." As, Ayaka, after seeing this, she would basically look at the guards, as she would say, "I think it's time for all of you to basically leave," as one of them would say this. "But he's a wanted fugitive," and she would basically, start using her, her cryo powers, as she would say, "I told you to leave immediately." Wait for a second. As Ayaka would basically start using her cryo powers, as all of the guards would start to run away, as she would say, "I should probably tell brother about this." As she would basically say, "Toma." As Toma would say this, "What is it?" As she would say, "Try and find them, please." As she would say, he would say, "Sure, Ayaka." As he would basically start to leave, as Ayaka would basically leave the restaurant with a few Mora, as she would basically put them on the counter, as she would basically start to leave. As for, Izuku and also, Lumine, they would basically start to run. As, Lumine would say, "Are you sure you're gone?" As he would say, "I don't know, but we should probably keep running." As Paimon would say, "Paimon feels like she's about to get sick." So, after a while of, running, they would arrive at a pretty large area of land, more specifically, maybe about, basically like a forest. As they arrived there, they would say, "I think we lost him." As Lumine would say this, "I think so." As Paimon would say this, Paimon is as she would basically start to, become a little bit green-skinned. As she would basically say, "I think I should go to the bathroom." As she would basically start to leave, as she would, in the distance, they would basically start to hear the sound of vomiting. Yeah. So, after, doing that, Belle and also Lumine would basically start to leave. Paimon for now. They would basically look around the large forest as there's a little pathway. After a while, basically walking through this pathway, they would basically start to hear a bit of laughter. As they would see a few people there, wielding spears and pretty cheaply made armor. As one of them would say this, "Seriously guys, this rebellion certainly is a bit of a chore. Not only that, that Raiden Shogun is basically up our asses." As one of them would say this, "Well, it makes sense. After all, she's quite powerful and has much more powerful soldiers than us. Why should we just give up already?" As one of them would say this, "No, we shouldn't give up. I mean, we should just take rebellion. He would basically start, rambling on that they should, keep the rebellion going, saying that they should try and, liberate their country from this tyranny, the tyranny of, their god, or known as the Archon. As Izuku is basically hearing all of this, a certain, wait for a second, aka, Lumine was basically hearing this as well, as she would say, "So, I'm guessing they're the rebels, I'm guessing." As Izuku would say this, "Exactly." So, as they're, talking, the dog-like boy would basically appear with, a girl with, I guess you could say, she seems to have peach-like hair, and also seems to be surrounded by aquafish, as in, waterfish, or in this case, hydrofish, which Izuku starts to think that she's probably of the hydro element, which, it makes sense. So, after, seeing this, she would say, "Alright guys, we should probably not make this a little bit too dark. After all, we're doing this rebellion for a reason. To liberate this world, or at least, our country from the tyranny of that Raiden Shogun. Should basically say, I should say, anyway, stop, making our morale a little bit lowered. So, we should probably start to leave after all. A few guards of Inazuma will start to, appear soon. After hearing about that little, after hearing about that certain, certain report about last time. So, as all of them would basically start packing all their stuff, a certain, emergency food would appear. I should say, Paimon is back. Are you okay, guys? As Izuku would say this. It seems that we sort of gotten a great ally. Lumine? As Lumine would say this. Ally? What do you mean? Wait, are you really planning on making a rebellion with them? Or at least, joining that rebellion with them? As Izuku would say this. Maybe. I mean, why not? After all, she's trying to basically force me to marry her. After all, I'm not really into that. I should say, yeah, me too, but still. As both of them are basically talking, a few members of, the resistance, aka, the rebellion, would basically hear them. More specifically, Goro, aka, the dog boy, as he would say, it seems that Lumine of the Golden Sword and Izuku of 1,000 Elements have finally heard us. And I'm guessing they're planning on basically joining us. After hearing their conversation, he would basically whisper that, Kokomi, aka, the fish girl over there. I should say, it seems so, Goro. We will meet them soon anyway. So, as both of them leave, Izuku would basically say, anyway, we should probably start to leave to go back, the Kamisano mansion. As after hearing this, she would say, yeah, we should probably go. As Paimon would basically follow them, they would basically arrive back home safely somewhat. So, after arriving at the Kamisato clan house, they would basically, go into bed. As, Izuku would say this. Alright, good night then. As she would say, yeah, good night, Izuku. As both of them would fall to sleep. Currently in a different perspective. As, Raiden Shogun is currently at her, I guess you could say room, or more specifically, in the, what is that called? The plains of Euthymia, or at least I think that's the pronunciation of Euthymia. If I'm wrong, then, comment down below. So, as we go to that realm, we see the actual Raiden Shogun, or at least the actual body of Raiden Shogun. Or, should I say, her sister. I should say, soon, I will finally get you, Izuku Midoriya. As she would basically start, holding something in her hands. A freaking doll of him. A actual replica doll of him. As she would say, you will soon all be mine. All mine. She would say, as she would basically start getting hearts in her eyes. As she would start, I guess you could say playing with herself, if you get what I mean. With the doll on the side. Oh god, just imagine actually doing that. So, outside of the, plains of Euthymia, currently would see, we currently see, I guess you could say a completely, defeated, Kujusara. Kujusara's currently, still thinking about her whole situation right now. The whole, trying to, I guess you could say cope with, her, Archon is basically in love with the guy that she's also in love with. As she would say, what am I supposed to do? She would basically start, wipe a bit of her, tears, away, as she would basically get a report from some of her subordinates saying, Master, Miss Kujusara, as she would basically look back at them, as she would say, what is it? As one of them would say this, you need to read this. So, as she would basically grab, the piece of paper that's supposed to be the report for what they saw, or at least the whereabouts of, Izuku Midoriya. She would say, I see. So, she's been hiding him from me. She would basically start clenching her fist as she would say, guess it's time for me to at least talk to her. So, as she would say this, she would say, okay, Kamasato Ayaka, I hope you're not doing anything with my Izuku, she would basically say with an angry tone. Now, let's go! As all of them would basically, salute to her, as she would basically start to leave with the rest of her, squad. So yeah, we're gonna be ending this episode right off here. So, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!